welcome to the Metaverse Insider's interview series. My name is Josh, and in today's episode, we cover part one of our conversation with Lyron Bentovim, President and CEO of the Glimpse Group, an immersive technology company comprised of a diverse ecosystem of subsidiaries providing enterprise-focused AR and VR software services. The Glimpse Group works across many different industries, including healthcare, education, entertainment, and retail, offering software and services to enable businesses to implement VR and AR solutions. In part one of our conversation with Lyron, we explore his perspectives on immersive technology and how it affects the future of the metaverse. Thank you very much for joining us today, Lyron. We really appreciate your time. So to start off, can you give us a brief introduction to what it is that you do at the Glimpse Group and what your role is within the company?
Sure. The Glimpse Group is kind of basically a platform company for immersive technologies. So we basically kind of have multiple subsidiary companies, each focusing on their own enterprise use cases of kind of either VR or AR, and down the road we'll add other immersive elements. And they all work together as part of the Glimpse Group, and the Glimpse Group basically serves as basically kind of both a parent company for all of these, doing kind of a lot of the back office elements, but also as an ecosystem where all these companies work with each other. They're all fully owned by Glimpse, so it's not kind of we're investing in them. They're all owned, and kind of our companies work with each other, sharing technology, know-how, IP, kind of go to market, and really work as part of a kind of big family of people that are focused on kind of really taking the immersive technology into the next level, kind of with enterprises and organizations. So kind of I'm the kind of co-founder and CEO, and James is our CMO.
Lovely. I was quite excited to interview you. I really enjoy the whole concept of immersive technology where there's so much currently going on. It's very intriguing to see where it all eventually goes. So the Glimpse Group is an umbrella company, right? Are these other companies in the group bought or created?
So most of the companies have been acquired. Some of them were acquired as early stage startups. So we've had some that we brought them in. There were like one or two kind of people, and now they're kind of like in the hundreds. And some were bought more mature companies, and some we kind of basically saw an opportunity. We found someone that could lead that effort, and we basically kind of seeded them in a sense to build it under our umbrella. So we've had all of these kind of under our auspices.
Oh, fantastic. How did the idea for this come about?
So it started kind of back in late 2015, early 2016. I was looking at kind of where we were and kind of realized that we're in the beginning of a new tech cycle. And I grew up in the previous tech cycle, and where kind of PC, mobile, and internet really moved us from an analog world to a digital world. And those cycles take 35 years. You start with the technologies, start becoming commercial, kind of initially early adopter, kind of many times kind of gamers and enthusiasts play around with it. And at some point, both kind of enterprises and businesses get the concept that this is critical and starts kind of adopting it. And also consumers, the kind of usually the hardware gets to the point where consumers are ready for the technology, and they're kind of picking it up. So the previous tech cycle started in the early 80s, but in the mid 90s, it really took off both with enterprises and consumers. And then you have the kind of the second half of the cycle is where it's already taken off, but then kind of all the evolution of all the solutions, both kind of on the software side and on the hardware side. So I thought in 2015, we're in the beginning of a similar tech cycle that's going to take us from the digital world to the immersive world. And the three main technologies that move us are immersive technologies, which is virtual reality and augmented reality, together with artificial intelligence and blockchain. So those three technologies together are going to move us from this digital world where we're in right now, as we kind of ended that previous tech cycle, into an immersive world where all the things that we've consumed on a 2D screen, now we're going to consume in an immersive way, kind of in 3D. And so I saw this opportunity, and I was trying to figure out what's the best way of tackling that, especially in the early stage. Because in the early stage, there's not a lot of market. So there's not a lot of big budgets, there's not a lot of money, there's not a lot of people that know what this is going to look like. And I wanted to build a company that will allow our startups that are under our umbrella to be more efficiently managed in this, because the challenge with startups, if you kind of you get a great idea, you put a great team together, you say, okay, things are going to be great, you even raise some money, But then if the money you raise is for a year, you use it, kind of the market's not there, nobody wants to give you more money, and kind of, well, you're gone. Even if you had everything going for you, you've got great people, great technology, great kind of focus, doesn't matter. So I wanted to build something that will be able to build scale where scale doesn't exist in this early stage industry, and really thrive when we get to the later stages of the cycle.
That's brilliant. So I guess it's safe to say that currently we're in the early 90s of the internet all over again.
Does tend to move a little bit faster, kind of as technology evolves. So we might be slightly further, but yeah, we're not much further than those years. So we're still a few years away from really getting organizations as a whole and individuals to really see this. Everybody gets it now that it exists, but they haven't really figured out what it's going to do to their lives. And this is where we enjoy kind of being there and helping kind of organizations understand how this is going to impact what they're doing.
I'm sure you guys get this a lot as well, but when talking to the general public about what we do and what this whole new industry is, it's quite mind-blowing to the everyday person. It's hard to get your head around, especially regarding the metaverse initiatives. People don't really know what it means yet, and I'm sure the definition of what the metaverse is still quite an ambiguous term.
It's a great topic of kind of discussion. You put a panel together with like five people from the industry. For me, it's very clear kind of what it is or where it will be, because right now it doesn't exist. Right now it's a concept that kind of is being evolved,
Mhm.
and people are trying different things out and seeing how they all will come together. And kind of even kind of you go back to things we know what they are right now, and if you had to define them early in their kind of evolution, you wouldn't have kind of what you know right now about the internet and cloud computing and stuff. If you went back into the early 90s where it was just beginning to happen, kind of people would have defined it differently in terms of what you would do with it, how it would work, or kind of what would happen in it. So I think kind of there's a lot to be had in terms of where we're going with this, but that's kind of it's going to be a very interesting and exciting phenomenon.
1, 2, 1, 2. Exactly, Lyron. So, regarding all these industries that you're involved in, can you please walk me through some of the industries that you consider to be the most important one in this new age of tech?
So kind of I usually look at it kind of in four different kind of buckets. And I look at the buckets almost as use cases rather than industries,
Mm,
because you can do those buckets across industries and I'll touch them. So the first bucket, which is right now probably the biggest, not just for us, but overall kind of in the industry, because of how easy it is to transition from digital to immersive in that bucket, is marketing. And kind of basically kind of as you look at marketing, obviously there's a lot of different elements that come into play. One of them is using augmented reality to basically showcase products kind of or objects or interactions with consumers. This is really powerful with Gen Zs. They're really interacting with it. Brands are totally into that, and kind of we're getting a lot of traction with customers in that space. So that's kind of one area. Second on the marketing is really companies that have complex products or solutions. So it could be kind of you're making a big airplane, which you can't kind of really bring and show people unless kind of you have to bring people to the plane rather than the plane to the people. Or you're kind of basically kind of building a building or your architecture firm or whatever. And how do you kind of market what you have without having it there? And virtual reality and sometimes augmented reality offers a lot of elements of what you can do with those. So those are kind of so the two things we do a lot with marketing is either engaging with consumers on behalf of the brands, or kind of allowing brands to tell their story to usually customers, which are kind of many times other businesses, but sometimes other consumers using either VR or AR. So that's the marketing bucket. We can kind of basically go back and kind of talk about the benefits that excuse me, it brings in. The second bucket is what I call learning. And that basically goes into a variety of things, obviously, kind of K-12 schools as well as kind of universities and colleges. And then you've got kind of professional training, you've got corporate training, you've got medical professional training. So you've got all these elements of basically teaching people how to do things, which is significantly more powerful with immersive technologies than it is with 2D or kind of basically kind of physical elements. So kind of teaching someone, and we've done numerous kind of really cool things. Like uh, teaching people how to clean a hospital room between patients. It sounds kind of mundane, right? But each hospital has very strict, and it's very important, very strict kind of ways of doing it. It's not like kind of you go in and you kind of basically get some of the dust off. It has to be done very methodically. Otherwise, kind of some people can get the other person's illness, and that's a risk. And how do you do that? Kind of historically, they've basically had people come because there's a lot of turnover at the staff because those are low paid people, and they kind of and it's hard work. So you have them drag around and you teach them and you teach them, and then like 2 weeks later they leave, and you're spending a lot of effort in that education. Where in VR you basically give them the headset and let them do it, and they kind of basically do it until they're good at it. You just verify that they know what they're doing, and then you're good to go. So you can see kind of there's a lot of ways of kind of learning in immersive technologies is definitely a powerful use case across all industries. Then you have what I call visualization, is the ability to see things that don't exist right now. And those could be kind of buildings that you're about to build, or kind of products that you're designing, or data in a different way. So kind of that's another power of immersive technologies that allows you to see things much more clearer when you're in them or surrounded by them, or we kind of bring them to you, than if you just see a picture of them on a screen. So that's the third bucket. Again, kind of goes across industries. And the last one is what I call kind of the end game, the metaverse, but this is social interaction. So the ability to do things with people that are not with you. And it could be kind of a learning experience, so it ties to learning, but it could be a concert, it could be going to shop, it could be kind of playing a game. Everything that you're doing with other people, which eventually will be the metaverse. Kind of that's the fourth use case. So allowing people that are not in the same physical locations to do things with each other in an immersive world. So those are the four buckets of use cases that I look at. And then as you look at those as a cross section with industries, you can kind of basically say, okay, what can we do in healthcare across these things? So obviously, kind of you can have therapy sessions remotely. That's the kind of the social element. You can clearly train medical professionals. You can show kind of technicians how to use a kind of device, kind of which is the visualization. Take a device and kind of show them kind of how to use it kind of remotely. You can have pharmaceutical companies talk about the benefits of a drug that they're doing in a marketing element. And so you can see how all of these go across an industry. And then you can kind of layer each industry. You can go with kind of architecture, and you can go across all the board and kind of see how kind of each one of these applies and so on. So that's how we look at things.
That's very interesting. There's so much potential in the application of immersive tech. So, concerning this and regarding hardware especially, do you see this from a perspective of goggles, implants, or whatever else it can be in the future? Do you know? Because there's so much debate about what that's going to be, and some people even consider immersion to be simply looking at a 2D screen as we are now. So, how would you define this?
Yeah, so obviously the way it evolves is similar to kind of the 2D screens, right? So when we started with the 2D screens, we basically had TVs and that's it. Even when I was kind of a kid, kind of my computer was connected to my TV because that's the only screen we had in the house. And now we have screens wherever we are. And kind of we've got screens in a variety of different ways, kind of different sizes, from our kind of 4K TVs to our computers, to our laptops, to our iPads, to our phones. Kind of all these are screens, and our watches. So all these are size screens, but they do the same thing. As we go into kind of the immersive world, kind of we're starting with headsets. Obviously, you can immerse, and our solutions work on a computer, even though they're geared towards VR or AR. You can use them on a computer. It's just not the same, kind of because you're not really immersed in it. You can see a 3D element that you can look into it, but going to Decentraland on a PC, in my view, that's not the metaverse. It's just a 3D gamified world that has existed in 20 years. When you go in VR and you're fully immersed in it, then that changes the story. Now, right now, that works with the VR headsets that we have and some of the MR headsets, even though I think the world is moving even the MR to the VR headsets. And kind of, I see you've kind of played around with the new Meta Quest Pro, and kind of you can see where MR comes into VR way better than the MR is on the kind of like HoloLens or the Magic Leap and those, because they're limited in terms of where you're immersed, yet kind of once you put the headset on, you're watching the whole world through it, and now the whole world is immersive. So I assume the size of the headsets will go down significantly. Eventually, they will look like much more like glasses that people are used to wearing, and definitely on the augmented reality side, people will be walking the street with glasses that kind of will kind of not look like we fell off a spaceship, and people kind of they'll have a fashion element to them. I believe that we will get to the point kind of probably kind of 15, 20 years away from contact lenses, which is kind of getting to the point where they're no longer kind of something that you have to kind of basically kind of worry about. And just like people put contact lenses on and kind of stay with them the whole day, we'll do that. And we'll control them from what we now call phone, but we won't have a screen there, but it will be a computing device that will allow us to choose whether we want to kind of see the real world with no augmentation, the real world with augmentation, or a virtual world, and we'll just flip between those. So I believe the headsets will be kind of one that will do all variations of this thing. And then kind of the next generation, kind of, and that's the scary part, but not sure I'll be around for that, is the implants, right? Because why kind of broadcast directly if you can just go directly to the brain? That also gives you a lot more flexibility, because right now the headsets deal with two of our senses. Kind of we're dealing with view, kind of with our vision and our sound. Those are the easy ones. We're playing around with a variety of haptics to kind of get us the touch. Technology exists for the smell, but it exists by actually creating the smell rather than making you think that the smell. And taste, nobody has any real solution for that. But I can build a coffee shop in Paris and I can make it look like it and sound like it. But if I'm not drinking the wine or eating the croissant, what's the point? Uh, it's kind of fakeish, right? But so I believe that kind of over the next kind of whatever, I don't know, 30, 40 years, we'll be able to communicate taste directly to the brain, because at the end of the day, when you eat something, there's a communication from your tongue to your brain that you just had a glass of wine versus a glass of milk, right? Kind of. And if you think that you're going to have, if I blindfold you until you're going to have drink milk and I give you wine, even though you like wine, you'll kind of basically kind of feel really bad, and vice versa. So we can translate that, and eventually we will have a way of communicating that to the brain. So when we drink a virtual glass of wine in the metaverse, we will actually taste that wine, and not only taste wine, but we will taste the difference between a Bordeaux and a kind of Pinot Noir from California, and kind of and that's kind of that. And each one of us will like the wines just like we like them in the real life, because some people would kind of basically kind of only take French wine, and some people like Chilean wine, and that's fine. Putting aside the cost, kind of people just have different flavors, and all of that will come into play, and we will be able to basically consume all these things virtually without the kind of the impact of basically calories and basically kind of getting drunk, but kind of getting the taste and flavor and getting into the experience. So I think there's a whole world of this that will eventually open up, but that's in the later stages of the cycle.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely agree with you. I mean, from a societal perspective, the idea of being immersed to that extent is almost slightly terrifying, because even though it's so important for people to have these social interactions, I can see many individuals who will almost be overly immersed in these environments. And you say people will be able to experience taste, but by that logic, if people can have taste, how far will this go? Will people be able to experience the effects of alcohol? I mean, it's a phenomenal experience to even comprehend, but wow.
You'll be able to fill that and then potentially unfill that pretty quickly. So you'll have that kind of good kind of buzz that you get when you're there, but without the side effects
Yeah.
of basically kind of you want to get to work, you basically kind of tell your brain, I'm no longer drunk, and kind of basically you're no longer drunk and you can go work. So there's no hangover in the morning.
That concept is truly remarkable. So, with immersive technology obviously having all this potential, the metaverse is to some people the end game or their main mission for what they want to achieve in the space. I know there are so many industries, as you mentioned before, education, healthcare, and all of these institutions that can benefit from it. But we are curious to know how this will truly impact the metaverse, or how it may actually be the foundation for the metaverse per se. So, from a strategic perspective, where would you guys say that you are positioning yourselves for a fully fledged metaverse?
So what we're doing right now, and through all of our subsidiaries, each doing their own thing, is we're basically kind of doing two important elements as on the road to the metaverse. One, we're building the building blocks that will allow eventually the metaverse to form. Because kind of in my view, the metaverse will form when we'll really have a metaverse, and the metaverse will be a collection of worlds and experiences that are all connected together, basically allowing you as an individual to move between them, kind of being you, whatever way you want to look, and whoever sees or doesn't see who you are, and move your property that will include currency and assets with you between those worlds. Kind of once that happens, then we will have a metaverse. Until then, kind of it's BS. If you cannot go to Roblox and kind of buy something and then carry it with you, and then go into kind of basically kind of Meta's Horizons and kind of and use that same item, it would look different. It might have different abilities to do things, but you will still have it, and you will be you, and you will be able to move between these worlds. Until you have that, there's no metaverse. So back to what we're doing two things. First of all, we're building the building blocks that will allow organizations to have their presence in those metaverse. It doesn't matter whether they're going to train their employees there, or build a corporate campus, or a kind of a university campus, or virtual hospital for simulations, or a variety of different things. All of these need to be built, and our companies, we want to build those things. So we're less focused on, we're B2B, not B2C. So we're not going to open something that will open up kind of for consumers to go explore, but we want to help Disney kind of open their parks in the metaverse rather than open a park that will compete with Disney in the metaverse. So that's on kind of what our companies are doing technologically. The other thing is that very important is we're working, basically holding those organizations' hands as they're basically understanding what's there, because we have the breadth of solutions and know-how about this industry. We can work with large organizations and tell them about everything that could be done, rather than try and sell them one solution that we have. We've got the ability to give them that bigger perspective, understanding what the metaverse will mean to their organization, how they can lever that to succeed, and then helping them put together the plan to evolve from basically not having anything to do with this to fully immerse in the metaverse over a few years.
Well, that's a wrap for part one of our conversation with Lyron Bentovim from the Glimpse Group. Be sure to stay tuned for weekly updates in the industry and content covering all things Metaverse. Follow the Metaverse Insider on Twitter and LinkedIn, and visit metaverse.tech for all our content. Thank you for joining us, and until next time.